thank you so much for being here, fitting us into your busy schedule for Americana Week.
Are you kidding? I'd be happy to talk to you anytime, Chloe. Well, anytime.
The feeling's mutual. I feel like we've known each other for a long time, even though we haven't seen each other for, let's be honest, many years. But we did share a tour together, albeit a short one, but it was memorable for me because it was in your home country.
It was in sweet old the Netherlands.
The Netherlands. And in Utrecht. That was pretty good.
That was pretty good.
Pretty authentic.
We'd say Utrecht.
Amazing.
Yeah.
There, I did the R a little too American. I feel like Utrecht.
It's hard. It's hard.
You coach me after the word.
Okay.
The fact. Okay. But I do remember playing a couple of great shows and also just riding bikes everywhere in town, which was such a joy. And I know that's like probably like a Netherlands cliche or something, but it really is cool. Not only to ride the bikes all over town because it's pretty flat and so it's easy, like that. But also just seeing bikes everywhere. You're like, wow, the world could be like this. It could.
I know it can.
It could.
Look
and it
at
can.
the Netherlands.
Look at the case in point. But so that was in 2018, I think we decided. And I feel like your career has just taken off in leaps and bounds since then in, albeit a steadfast and persistent way. And that's one of the ways I would describe you and anybody who ultimately has success in a really competitive industry like this one is to be steadfast and persistent on top of being fabulously talented. But, let's be honest, there's a lot of really talented people who lack those other two things. And that can work for a minute. But I think it's really hard to create a sustainable career without just showing up day after day after day after day. Tell us your secrets. Okay, I'm just kidding. I'll break this down and do an easier line of questioning. Well, first I want to know, I read the bio, and from knowing you and following your career, I know that your love of kind of American culture goes back, way back. And I thought maybe it'd be interesting to hear you talk about like what started you off on this journey and why you kind of chose sort of storytelling indie folk as your outlet.
Well, first of all, I knew that whatever I was going to do in my life was going to happen here in the States because I grew up in a super small town in the Netherlands called Aalst. And I always felt very trapped there because there was no art scene, no culture. I mean, I really loved my earliest form of escapism, and that was watching movies with my dad. We watched movies on Tuesdays and Thursdays because that's when they would play blockbusters with so many commercial breaks. Big movies, but so many commercial breaks. I will never forget the commercial breaks. But that was just a snack break, so honestly, yeah, it was a good break.
Yeah, great. And so those were like American movies?
Yes, they were all American.
Dutch commercials.
With Dutch commercials.
Cool.
But I loved kind of escaping into other worlds and other parts of the U.S. And I felt like I got to see so much through the movies. And I thought, oh man, if only I could be there. If I could be there myself, that would be so amazing. And when I was 19, I actually got on a plane to New Orleans because I was a piano player. I was already a singer-songwriter, but I mostly played piano. Ended up in New Orleans. My mom hated it. I was only 19, and I don't think I'd ever flown before. Yeah, I was by myself. And I visited a friend that I met at a festival in the Netherlands, and I put her up for a couple of days, and she was like, I'll do the same for you if you ever come to New Orleans. And I said, well, I would love to come to New Orleans. So a year later, I went and visited her. And
I feel like that's a fantastic introduction to American music, by the way.
Yes.
Just being in New Orleans.
And I was 19. I couldn't even get into the bars because I was too young. And in the Netherlands, you can get into any place when you're maybe 16, sometimes 18. But I was so offended that I couldn't get into this bar to look for music. Look for music,
like
and
archaic in a way.
Yeah. And a couple of times I was in the French Quarter and I said, no, I just really just want to see the jazz. I don't want to drink. And a couple of times the door people let me in, or like let me look at the music like within their eyesight to make sure I wasn't drinking.
Yeah.
But that was honestly what I was there for.
I feel like that's also an aspect of New Orleans culture that would happen. It's like not going to happen in Nashville or something, you know. No doorman's going to be like, cool, lady, we'll let you peek in.
But they did. And it was super inspiring. And that year I had just put out my first album when I was 19. And don't get excited, people. This was kind of a bad album. It wasn't great. But that album flopped in the months after. And I did a tour, but nobody came to the shows. And I got a couple of write-ups, but that didn't really do anything. And I thought, great, everything's ruined. This may not be for me. I'm going to stop this. But my love for the States and for America and for American culture was still there. So I hit up a family member of that friend that I visited, because I knew she was the head of a school in Southwest Louisiana. And I said, hey, can I maybe intern at your school? Because I was studying music education at the time. In the wise words of my parents,
have a backup plan.
Have a backup plan, right? Because they didn't really believe that was that being a musician and a songwriter was a real thing. Yeah. And something really changed there in Louisiana. And my school in the Netherlands was cool with letting me go for a couple of months. And I would just hang out at the school and check out what these kids were doing and what their music teacher was doing with them. And they sang folk songs, all 3 chords, super simple. It was a pretty poor school, so it wasn't like they had a lot of instruments or band classes, but they did sing. And I realized that in my own songwriting, I was so hung up on jazz and like the way I was taught music theory in school that I'd completely gone past the point of actually vibing with a very simple song and trying to get a very simple message across. And these kids, these 7-year-olds, were singing songs with their eyes closed and feeling it. And I don't even think they knew what it meant, what they were singing, but they were feeling it. And that really shifted something. And I honestly started writing songs again, even though I'd kind of thrown in the towel thinking, well, nobody cares. And I started writing songs on guitar because there wasn't a piano around at the time. And someone was like, well, I have this guitar. You can borrow that if you want. I said, okay, cool. And I taught myself a couple of chords, and immediately songs started flowing. Songs a little more simple, songs a little truer to my feeling, and songs that weren't trying to fit in anywhere, just very purely what I felt. And I decided to try them out because there were open mics where I was staying. So I went to this place called Artmosphere in Lafayette, and I went to Luna Live in Lake Charles. And what I noticed was that people really liked those songs, the few people that were there. And one guy walks up to me after I sang my 3 songs that I'd written, and he goes, hey, I work for college radio here. I really love that song. Would you maybe like to play on the radio next week sometime? And I said, oh my goodness, I'm from the Netherlands. Nobody cares what I do over there, but I'm in the country that inspired all of this, and they do want to hear my songs here. And that, I think, gave me a really big boost of confidence. Like, oh, maybe there is something there. Maybe it's just the guitar. And I remember very well that on that trip, someone threw a mug of coffee over my laptop at the time. And
like threw or spilled?
Spilled. Like, it wasn't on purpose.
Wasn't angry. Okay.
Yeah.
Was it mean-spirited?
No. No one was mean-spirited ever. But
they were clumsy, though.
It was a little clumsy, and my laptop broke, and I actually filed my insurance because I don't know how my 19-year-old self had insurance, but I had a travel insurance, and I said, well, this happened, help. And at first I didn't really respond. And then after I got back from that trip, I got an email that said, yeah, we'll cover this. We'll send you the money. And instead of buying a new laptop,
What did you do, Judy?
I bought a Gibson J45 at the local music store, and I had a real guitar. And for years after that, I didn't play piano again, because I was so mesmerized by playing guitar and what that had done for me. Yeah,
it's awesome to have that weird new world open up when you play something that you don't know how to play, quote unquote. You know what I mean? Like I've written a couple of songs on a clawhammer banjo, which I ask anyone can barely play. And but barely play is kind of an advantage in a way, because you think differently. You have there's less possibility. It like kind of focuses, it narrows the scope and allows something new to come in. So anyway, I really love that story. And there's also this famous account by a jazz composer from a much earlier time, W.C. Handy, and he relates this story of when he was coming up and he was like obsessed with complicated arrangements and stuff for his then traveling orchestras. That's what was happening in like the 30s. And he came to St. Louis and they were having a hard time filling rooms. And he saw like these street musicians playing just like a cappella singing jive, like he called it jive music. And it was just like he was stunned. I just couldn't help but think of him when you were relaying this story, because that's what he was like. I just saw these guys and they were just like playing the simplest songs and singing the simplest songs, and money just started flying out into their cases, because it was like, it's hitting the people. It was like where the people are. It was like, maybe even you say like hitting the heart, you know what I mean? Instead of I have gone through my own journey of simplification. I too had the misfortune of being classically trained in music theory. And I mean that I love music theory. I actually think about it all the time. And what's great about it is the possibilities, but you can get sort of like obsessed with like doing something different all the time, or like, here's an unexpected thing. And I had that disease when I was much younger, where I was like always trying to like do something different. And which is great in a way, but also there's something to be said for just singing a song that somebody can sing along with.
Right.
How powerful that is.
And that it resonates. Yeah. That a feeling resonates rather than a structure of complication. Because I felt like that's what I got from music school. It was so limiting, because every time I would like show up with a song, they'd be like, yeah, it's nice. It is very simple.
Right.
And then I would make it more complicated, and then they'd be impressed, you know? Which...
diminished chords.
Oh, yeah. Can we not? Yeah. So I think that journey of coming to Louisiana, seeing how people did it there, and how folk music was prevalent in people's lives really changed something. And after that, my songwriting got better. I started kind of taking all kinds of random gigs in the Netherlands. And when I was in Louisiana, I had actually gone to a show of my favorite band at the time, the Wood Brothers. And the Wood Brothers played the Acadiana Center of the Arts in Lafayette, and I was so starstruck and just wanted to see the show. Had listened to all of their albums multiple times, big fangirl, and met them after the show, all shaky. And then a year later, I saw that they were playing the Netherlands. They were playing Rotterdam, which is where I was studying at the time. And I hit up the drummer on Facebook, and I said, hey, I'm that girl you met in Lafayette. Can I please open for you guys? I don't need any money. I just want to open for you guys. And 2 weeks before the show, he wrote me back and he said, yeah, we remember you. Absolutely. I don't know if he checked out anything of what I did, but he said yes to it.
Yep.
And that's how I got to open for the Wood Brothers for the first time. And when I did that, that was kind of a nudge of the universe. I feel like, wow, this was a beautiful thing. And then when I was doing my sound check, I was playing with my bass player at the time, just a duo, just me and that acoustic and my bass player. Oliver was standing kind of side stage, and I mean, he's got a pretty recognizable silhouette, right? And I was so, I couldn't believe that he was standing there and watching my sound check. And then after I walked off stage, it was him, and he said, "Hey, I really like your songs. Let me know if you're ever in Nashville." And yeah.
You were like, cool, I'll get back to you, and I will get back to you.
Yes.
And you did get back to him.
And I did get back to him, because later that summer, I went back to Louisiana, and then I just went and looked up their tour schedule to see if they were playing again. And I saw that they were off 1 week in the summer. And I said, oh, goodness, I got to get back. I got to get to Nashville. And I booked a ticket from Louisiana to Nashville, went to Nashville, stayed with a stranger, and then hit up Oliver and said, "Hi, I'm in Nashville. Do you still want to get that coffee?" And he did. And we went and grabbed coffee, sat down, and I got to ask him all kinds of things that I was wondering about. And it was one of the most pivotal moments in my life. I couldn't believe I was sitting there with one of my heroes talking about this.
I think a through line of your story that sets you apart is your ambition. Is that fair to say? Do you think of yourself as an ambitious person?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Because if you didn't, I'd be like, reevaluate your perspective. Because you clearly are. But also, you're like looking for opportunities, and you're not afraid to ask. And so that's part one. I think part two is also there's this, that saying, a prophet is not without honor except in his own country. I think it's from the Bible, actually. The idea being that people will treat you like a star will treat you better the more they don't know you. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So you come to America and you're that Dutch girl. That's kind of weird, and then you come back home and they're like, cool, Judy. Oh yeah, I'm Judy from the block, right? It's
true. No, it's 100% true.
So way to go. That's all I'm trying to say. Like setting yourself apart by like having, like, you're also a person that I've known people like this, and I'm a little bit like this, who always thinking about a way to get your foot in the door. All I need is my foot, because I'll kick it open if you give me a shot. And I know that you think like that.
Yeah.
It's proof.
Well,
proof
I
positive.
think it's curiosity.
Yeah.
And I remember from that, I mean, a lot happened after meeting Oliver. Like what happened after that meeting kind of changed everything.
Yeah,
because
for sure.
he said, "Hey, I got to go now, but my wife works at the studio in town. Would you like to see it? Because she can probably give you a tour, and I can drop you off there." And I said, oh, you mean Southern Ground, where you guys recorded all of your stuff? Yeah, I've heard of it. And he did. He dropped me off there. She gave me the full tour of the place. That's Zach Brown's studio. And I then decided there and then, wow, I'm going to go home. I'm going to work my ass off. And I'm going to come back with money. And I'm going to record songs here, because then I'll have a story. And it's definitely going to sound better here, and it's going to be more interesting to make it here than it'll ever be in the Netherlands. Songs were born here. I want to record them here. So that's what I did. I went home, got a job, and took all the random gigs I could find until I had saved up enough to record an EP.
What year was that?
That was 2017. And yeah, I went back in the summer of 2017, recorded an EP because that was all I had money for, and came back to the Netherlands with that EP, got signed to a Dutch label called V2 Records, because they were like, what's this girl doing in Nashville? We like these songs. And they said, can you go back to Nashville to record more? And I said, yeah, that sounds amazing. So that's what happened. I recorded the second half of the songs that same fall. And from that moment on, something had shifted, because I felt like all of a sudden, whoa, I was being taken seriously. I wasn't delusional. People actually cared about this. People in Nashville were really kind and helpful and wanted to play on the record and gave me deals, even though they didn't really know who I was, but they just wanted to support the project. And from that moment on, it turned into this mission of curiosity. And I think that is what got me very far. I was like, I wonder if I too could record an album in Nashville. I wonder if they'll let me in that studio. I wonder if I could play Americana Fest, even though no Dutch person has ever done that. I wonder. And that question, I wonder, has opened a lot of doors, because it's not I must. I have to. I got to. That's a different energy, but I wonder has gotten me very far.
It's inspiring, and I can relate. And I want to talk about kind of what's going on right now. But first, it'd be interesting to talk to the extent that you feel comfortable sharing about, the sacrifices of pursuing a career like this in terms of like personal relationships and happiness, because you have been hammering away for a long time and touring a lot and traveling hither and yon. And I know from firsthand experience that is really difficult to kind of find community is hard, but also like finding any sort of intimate or romantic relationship. How have you negotiated that challenge, my friend?
Well, not very well. No, this is I feel like I'm kind of doomed in that sense, because I'm like a ghost. I'm nowhere for a very long time. Every time I do find that spark with someone, I have to leave them again, because I go on tour for months at a time. And not just in the US, but also back in Europe. So I split my time between a lot of different places, and any meaningful connection just has to be nurtured. And of course, I have a lot of amazing neurodivergent musician friends who all understand that. And whenever I see them, we are good. And there's no hiccup in our friendship in any way. But in terms of a romantic partner, I have not found the inner peace in this life to nurture anything and let it grow and have the headspace to watch it grow to where something could actually last.
Yeah.
And that is a sacrifice, because it does make this life sometimes a little lonely.
Yes. You're also very young still. You're 30, is that fair to say? So that's you're still on the front side, I feel like. And I know that when I was 30, I didn't give a shit about anything but the next show. And I mean, I was very much in your mind space of just like, what else is out there? What can I do? What's possible? Who can I open for? Who can I like? It was priorities 1 through 5. And I'll speak after, on the other side of this and whatever. Life is always changing. My life personally is always changing, even in spite of like sort of a modicum of stability. But I noticed that this has happened around when I was like my late 30s. I started getting a little bit like, it's always me. It's always my name. It's always like win or lose. It's just, it started to be like less fulfilling in a way for the first time. And that planted this new seed that made me want to go, I would like to just know some people who weren't musicians. I would like to be in a place for a long enough time to just be in a place, to know what that was like. And I didn't know this in that moment, but that really was like a fundamentally different choice, because I feel like prior to all of that, I was just like, it's nice. I had lots of relationships along the way, that were fun and even meaningful, but like the priority was always,
Oh yeah.
And, with the next gig, the priority was just music. Wherever music's going, that's where I'm going. And then now I'm in a really different place. It's interesting, and I'm not. This is about you, and just to complete that sentence, I'm just like, that's not my priority now. My priority is my family, and to the extent that music and creativity can be part of that, then that it is. And honestly, I don't sleep ever, and I'm doing this all the time, and we're building this thing, and my wife and I have projects together, but so there's a ton of it there. But it's interesting because I would never just take off for 10 weeks for any reason, because I'm not going to be away from my kid for that long. There's nothing better and more important to me than that. Anyway, that's just it took me a long time to reach that place, and also just just being older, I think it's just your priorities change a little bit. Anyway, I love that, and I can relate, and it is a little bit lonely, I know.
At times, but at times
yeah.
It's also not at all.
Yeah.
And I feel like, wow, this is insane. I get to live this life.
Yeah.
I get to experience
it's freedom.
all of this.
It is a crazy opportunity, and you've made this happen yourself. And I think very few people, even talented people, can do this. And there's also just tribally, you occupy a unique lane where you are making your music the way that this is a gesture I've invented now, the way that you want to do it, and now you have a label now, there's a team, maybe there's other people saying, hey, maybe consider this, consider that. But it's just a fundamentally different way of going about it than being well, I want to be on country radio, and so how should I dress? What songs am I looking for here for this avenue? And so I think that's really exciting. You have, let me think about this. The song that's kind of had the most streams was Tangled Up in You. And that sound is really different from the brand new record. And I'm just curious about the stories behind both of those recordings, the sets of recordings, and the decisions that kind of went into going a completely different way, to me, a completely different way, sonically speaking. Can you put some words to that?
Yeah, absolutely. So when I went into the studio to record my first Nashville album, Morning Sun, I really just wanted my songs, those guitar songs that I'd written, to be recorded in the most beautiful sounding way possible, in the most kind of organic way possible.
And that's obvious in the recordings. That's, I love that shit.
Yeah.
There's a ton of space. There's a ton of just kind of obvious beauty, you could say.
But mostly I wanted just the world to hear my songs, because I was proud of those songs.
Yeah.
And the songs were dressed up a little, but not a whole lot. And I just wanted it to be pretty. And
not overpowered.
And not, exactly. And I felt a really I found a home in that space with that record, because I never knew what my music was. And then after my folk Louisiana adventure and turning to guitar, I was like, duh, it's Americana. And then I made that album, and people really loved it. And that song kind of popped off. And it's a very heartfelt, honest, kind of like a folk ballad. But after having played those songs for even just a year, I noticed that term Americana was, first of all, not correct, because I am not American. So it doesn't really work. Second of all, it was also limiting in terms of whose ears my songs would reach and who they were pitched to. And I wanted to expand, because I felt like there were people that wouldn't listen to my songs because they were like, Americana is not my thing. Oh, country music, not my thing. And I was like, no, you don't get it. They're just songs. It's just how I recorded them. It's about the song itself, right? Plus, I started listening to a lot more indie and indie rock records, and I was sonically more stimulated than after listening to the next Americana record, because let's be real, it does all sound very similar.
It hovers around the same thing, yeah.
And every time someone would step away from that and try something different sonically, or like add weird instruments or mix it in a weird way, my ears would perk up and be like, whoa, what's going on there? And then I decided that the next record was going to have to cater to more. I wanted it to be more accessible to everyone, including the weirdness of it. I didn't want to just play for cosplay cowboys anymore, because I felt like...
Not that there's anything wrong with cosplay cowboys.
You can do whatever you want. That's what I'm all about. But I never did that. I never dressed up like a cowboy, but I always felt like it was about the songs, and I wanted the songs to live longer and more and just expand and focus on that. So I decided to make a record with my favorite indie producer in the Netherlands. His name is Roy van Roosendaal, and he had this amazing playground of a studio full of synths and weird guitars and amps that you've never heard of, and an omnichord and anything you could think of. And he was so creative, and I loved his band at the time, and I was like, man, this is fun. It sounds fun and colorful and playful.
That's the word I would use is playful. It's very fun sounding and doesn't seem to take itself terribly seriously.
No.
In the best way.
When the content of the songs and the lyrics is sometimes super serious, but I'm not gonna sing another serious song in a serious sounding way with a serious cover, if that makes sense. So I switched it up, and I started coloring in these new songs, very playfully picking players for each song. I'd be like, hey, do you want to play on this? I feel like you'd vibe with it. And I kind of pick and choose for a couple of songs at a time. We'd track it, and then most of the overdubs are actually done by me and Roy together. So we tried things out for days on end. Like, ooh, let's try running a Hammond through a guitar amp and just add a bunch of tremolo to it. Ooh, let's run an omnichord through a space echo and reverse it. It was a very playful time in my life. And it was also the pandemic, so there was no label involved at this point in time. There was no rush. There was no deadline. So we really made that record the way I can probably never make it ever again, with just zero stress.
That kind of time. Yeah,
and absolutely. That kind of time. He had all the time in the world. And it was like a school, like the most fun school ever, because... Yeah. I often outsourced my sounds, same as what I did with Nashville. I mean, I love that record, but it is me outsourcing my sound to players here and a producer here and the sound of Nashville, which served me greatly, but it wasn't my sound. And I feel like with this record, I finally got to explore what it's like to trust your instincts and to trust my own melodic sense and sonic wishes, if you will, to actually make a record that I had fun with and that has my flavors and my choices on it.
Heard and evident. And you said that you recorded this during the pandemic and the record just came out. So how have you spent the last 5 years? I mean, that's a long time between those two things. And was the journey? I think that one is when one's excited about their recent collection of recordings, they want the world to hear it. And so there's a sense of urgency there. But it sounds like you didn't succumb to the temptation of just putting something out. You took your time. Is that what happened?
Well, I had always had the wish to put out a record in the States, because what happened with Morning Sun is everyone was stoked. Also, the people in Nashville, Americana Fest people were game. It did really well. People were playing it on Lightning 100. And I knew that was special. And that was a really unique situation, because there's people here that try to do that too, and that moved to the city to do that will not get that opportunity. But every time something cool would happen, I'd officially showcase at South by Southwest, or I'd play Americana Fest. My Dutch label would just ask me oh, did you have a good time in Nashville? And I was like, dude, you don't get it. I need your help. I need something to happen here. We need to bank on this somehow. And they just weren't able to help me because all they know was distribute records in the Netherlands and promote it in the Netherlands to the Dutch radio. And I really did not want to let that happen with this album because I believed in it from the day I started recording it. I knew this is something else. This is something bigger. I'm not going to let this fizzle because I have a record deal in Europe only. So my lease was up because I had made a couple of records with that Dutch label. And I finished this record, paid for all of it, had it mixed and mastered, and then applied for the visa to be a U.S. Or the U.S. artist visa, and to be able to work here officially and to give it a real go. And I kind of just took the record with me under my arm like a child.
A little zip drive that you have in your lapel pocket. Yeah.
And I just moved here on a whim. I was determined to get this record to a real record label because I was not going to let it fizzle. So I did that. I first did the most random tour ever because, to get this visa, you have to prove that you had shows. So I play in Healdsburg, California, and then Des Moines, Iowa, and Austin, Texas, and Bentonville, Arkansas. I played the most random shows ever because I needed to do that to get this visa. And after that, I went back to the Netherlands, played a couple of shows in Europe, and then I actually moved to Nashville, which was the city where I knew the most people and where I felt really at home and where I honestly had always wanted to live. So that's when
How does that work? Is it indefinite, your artist visa, or is it
no,
a year?
It's for 3 years.
3 years. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Continue.
So there was a little bit of a deadline there, because
perfect for you.
I mean, it does help a little.
Sense of urgency.
Yeah. And I really wanted to find a label for it. And I started playing around. I started touring with Susto because they needed a bass player. And I was like, you know what?
I play bass.
I didn't at the time, but they asked me and they said, we think you can do it. I said, cool. And 2 weeks later, we were opening for Noah Kahan at a stadium in Charleston. And that's where that adventure started. So through Susto, I met a lot of people, grew my fan base, slowly but surely. I started making a little more of a name for myself in Nashville by doing a residency and playing at other people's shows, singing a song at a friend's residency and going to Honky Tonk Tuesday and running into a bunch of people there. Dancing is still something that brings me so much joy. And I always run into cool people that then were like, oh, do you want to open for us? That'd be cool, right? It'd be fun, right? Flying out to a random city to open for some friends. Writing better songs and continuing to believe in this record.
Yeah.
And I almost gave up because I was here for a year and a half and nothing had happened. Nothing significant, nothing with the record. No one had been like, yes. So there was a label that said, yeah, maybe the next record. Or a label that said, well, does she have a touring history here? Because I don't really see it. And of course I didn't have a touring history. I started all over again here. I have a touring history in Europe, but not here. So I felt for the longest time that nobody really cared. And it was a very stressful endeavor. And I noticed that I was out of the curiosity space. I was in the I have to, but I have to get this record to a label. I have to. And that wasn't good. And I felt like I was being a little too eager with it again. And then I decided to take a step back and decide that whatever was going to happen was meant to be that way, and to trust that I was doing the most I could do and that I was still on this awesome adventure, and that if I'm ever 90, if I get to be 90 and look back on my life, I at least tried it, right? Because I really wanted to try it. I would have never forgiven myself if I hadn't tried it with this record. So I started having a little more fun with it, was getting ready to get back to Europe when I heard that Rounder Records was interested in the album and wanted to see me live. And wouldn't you know it, I was playing a show opening for Wild Child at the Basement East. Well, I played the show. It went great. I played solo. And I texted management afterwards. I was like, were they there? Did they like it? Tell me. And they said, oh, well, we just heard they didn't make it, unfortunately. And I said, great. Okay. And that was such a, okay, wow, maybe I am delusional.
No, it's heartbreaking. It's hurting my heart right now.
Maybe this is not meant to be.
Yeah. How many times has the fucking label not made the show? You know, been there. It's
so awful, especially when you feel like they're there.
Yeah. And you put on a good show and you're like, I did it. That was my best. Like, judge me on that.
Absolutely. But no, that did not happen. But then I went on, I think, another little run with Susto. I was out of town for a little bit and then was going to be back in Nashville for probably a week. And I was asked to play the 5 spot. And management had said, oh, yeah, Rounder wants to come out to this show again. So are you cool with playing the 5 spot? It would kind of be perfect. And I said, yeah, whatever. They're not going to come.
This time you're just like...
Yeah, sure. Okay. So I was convinced that they were not there. And I did not give a fuck about anything at that moment. I just wanted to play a good show. I'd put on my Instagram that I was playing my last show in Nashville before going back to Europe. And people took that seriously because they all showed up. Mm-hmm. Like, the 5 spot was full, and it was all people that came to see me play. And we had 35 minutes. I was playing with my favorite people in town, and I was ready to rock just for the sake of it and for the fun of it. And I was absolutely convinced that no one was going to be in that room of any importance other than my friends, and I just wanted to have a good time. So I played a show. I really crushed it. We really crushed it.
Let's be honest.
It was, honestly, it was one of my favorite band shows I've ever played. Objectively, that was a great show. It was very fun, very me, and very,
gratifying just for the musical side of it.
It was great, and it was fun. And we played all those songs that weren't out yet.
Yep.
We played the songs off the mystery record that no one had ever heard. And I got off stage. Also, all the people that were there immediately left. There were other bands afterwards, but it was very obvious that everyone had come to see us play. Everyone left. And then it turns out that Rounder did come to the show. And they were all there. Michelle Aquilado, Stephanie Hudacek, and Gary Pachosa. Freaking legend. They were there. And they immediately said, we need to talk to you. And I could not believe my ears. Because I was convinced that it was just not going to happen. I had almost thrown in the towel. I had almost convinced myself back to, okay, Judy Blank, you are delusional. This was a very optimistic endeavor. Thank you for switching up your life, but we're going to go back to Europe now, and we're going to go back to living in Utrecht and going to see your little indie movies and playing songs for your really sweet fans over there. And that's also good. That's a good life.
It's fine. A fine life.
It's fine. But no, I got signed after that show, and
fantastic. I mean,
that's crazy.
It's so weird because that's what had to happen. That it was a better opportunity probably to rep you with a band than without. So it's just a testament to the fact of just, trusting in the moment of apparent defeat that all is not lost, which is a hard thing for all of us to do, because the moment of apparent defeat can feel conclusive and all encompassing. And you don't think that there might be another day. And in fact, the other day, the another day was the better day, perhaps, to wrap it that way.
It was way better.
Turns out. That's inspiring to me personally on a personal level. So thank you for sharing that story. And I wonder if you might follow that with perhaps a showing of some of the talent that got you signed to Rounder. I have a guitar here somewhere. I think.
Where's the band? Bring in the band.
But maybe, do you want to set this song up?
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny because I wrote this song before Morning Sun had even come out. I was 23 years old and already really scared of being forgotten, because back then, I think my career was a little more about my personal quest for validation than it was what it is now, which is I want to make music that people feel seen by. I want all the wackos in the world to hear that and think, I feel that way too. I relate to that. It's helping me. It's not really about me anymore, which was also a great thing that shifted. But I think as musicians, especially in this town where you're constantly confronted with new people, new load of people coming in, people writing really good songs, people getting a buzz, getting a little bit of a viral moment, people taking off, and then you being in the middle of that and thinking, that's not happening for me. Maybe my art is not as good as I thought it was. Maybe I am not as good, as worthy of that as other people. And a couple of years ago, I was in East Nashville, and I was supposed to write with my friend Susie Brown, who is, I think, who connected us.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And Liz Longley. And I was staying with Susie at the time. And I always walk from Susie's house to Ugly Mugs, which is the best. I love Ugly Mugs and all the people that work there. And I get my iced hoodie, and I open a copy of the Nashville Scene that was just lying around. Surprising. I read magazines then. I wasn't on my phone. I don't know.
Yeah, I've had to have been there to believe it, but
different
continue.
Times. I opened the Nashville Scene because it had an article in it about the ending of the show Nashville. They were ending the season 6. They were done, and they were kind of like paying homage to the show and what it had done for the city. And it had a little synopsis of what the show was about, in case you hadn't seen it. And it said, Nashville follows the life of fading star in country music, Raina James. And I never read the rest of the article because I was like, whoa, fading star. That's so beautiful. And I feel that. I feel that way.
You're 23 years old.
I'm 23 years old. It made no sense. But in my head, I was well on the way of being forgotten.
Done. Yeah.
I was done.
Throw in the towel.
Yeah. Couple of times. I got so close. But I just remember, fading star, that's beautiful. And I walked back to the house with my hoodie, sat down. Liz came in, and Susie goes, does anyone have an idea for the song that we're going to write? And I said, well, I was just actually at Ugly Mugs, and I just saw the most beautiful word, or 2 words, fading star. And then Susie immediately went, yeah, who's going to look up to this fading star? And I was like, yes. And immediately, I think something happened in the room. We all understood what the parameters of this song were, because we were all feeling that. We were all feeling that, oh, well, is this our last great song? Like, are we doing the right thing? Are we going to be forgotten? Do we have to make something even better? Do we have to top the last thing that we did? Is that an unhealthy pressure? Are we worthy even if we don't make art? And the song flowed out of us, I think, in less than an hour. And after we were done writing it, no one ever touched it. We didn't tweak it. It was just as is. And that's how I recorded it. years later.
I can't wait to hear this. Fading Star.
Wandering these city streets from dawn to dusk, nobody recognized who I was. One cup of coffee in the restaurant, dreaming of days I was in the lights. Everyone said I was on the rise. Where did they go on my rainy nights? Who's gonna look up to this fading star? Fading star. Who's gonna see me when it's growing dark? I'm growing dark. If only they could see how bright I used to be, they'd love me. I know you'd love me too. There was a time that gave me hotel rooms, key to the top, and champagne too. Dressed me in velvet, all shades of blue. Who's gonna look up to this fading star? Fading star. Who's gonna see me when it's growing dark? I'm growing dark. If only they could see how bright I used to be, they'd love me. I know you'd love me. If I was poetry, some kind of symphony, I would still shine in your eyes. Who's gonna look up to this fading star? Fading star. Who's gonna see me when it's growing dark? I'm growing dark. If only they could see how bright I used to be, they'd love me. I know they'd love me. You'd love me. I would still love me too.
Judy, that was fucking fantastic. And it was really cool because my daughter Zuzu was here and able to see you play, and she loves music, but she doesn't always like participate, and she got into it a little bit.
She was singing.
I don't know if that made the recording or not, but that was so great. And I feel like we've been talking about the record, but we didn't mention the title, and so we need to do that so that people can find it.
The record is called Big Mood. Big Mood.
And it is full of big moods. I was just rocking it all this morning. And it is like absolutely playful, and it occupies a unique space because it's lyrically, not ambitious, I wouldn't say, but it's just like, you have something to say. And at the same time, there's a lot of fun in the journey of listening to the recording. So, I don't have to tell people to listen to it because everyone is listening to it. It just came out like in August, right? It's brand new. But you're not done. You're no fading star, my friend. You're a rising star. It's time to write the new song, I think.
Let's go.
And you're not sitting on this record just waiting for something to happen. You're putting out new stuff. And I think that there's a Christmas song coming out. Is that fair to say?
I got a couple.
Oh, damn. Tell me.
Well, I recorded a couple of my favorite Christmas covers. But in a very fun and existential way. And I think you're going to love this. I actually recorded a version of Have Yourself a Merry Little Christmas, But I found out that before Judy Garland sang the Hollywood version of it, there were original lyrics that were never used, that were way more dark and existential than her beauty, pretty version would ever be. And the writers actually changed the lyrics for Hollywood. But I decided to record the original dark lyrics because it fits Big Mood. It fits the vibe.
You are correct. I am a lot more interested in this recording now, just to know.
Yeah, well, I can give you the opening line if you want.
Share it.
Okay, so I'll just sing it. Have yourself a merry little Christmas. It may be your last.
Damn, dude.
Yeah.
I can see like the Hollywood execs being like, yeah, love the melody.
It's a lot different than Let Your Heart Be Light, huh?
Man, it reminds me, you know the movie Pretty Woman? You probably watched that one as a kid growing up. The backstory of that movie is not hilarious, but amazing and very unlikely, about an ambitious screenwriter who was getting no love. And his friend told him this story about this rich guy that picked up a prostitute. And he thought, oh, that was interesting. And so he wrote the script of Pretty Woman. It ends completely. It's a dark movie. It's like the actual story is dark, and there's a long bit that goes in between that moment and it finding its home, I think, on Touchstone, who ultimately put it out. But Touchstone is an imprint of Disney, and when they finally pulled the trigger, they were like, yeah, we love it. We love the story, but can we just like change the ending to like a happy ending? And the manager, without like asking the writer, was like, yep, no problem. We'll do that. No problem. The writer was like, yeah, it made a lot of money. It's fine. So there's something to be said for being happy, which I feel like you are happy. Is it fair to say on all accounts, on most accounts, on the largest account possible?
I think so, but it's always a question. Mm-hmm. Because my mom always says, this is something that keeps me grounded. She says, not every day can be a 10. Some days are a 5 or a 6 or a 3. Your life will never be a 10. It's always going to be somewhere in between. But if the average is pretty okay, then you could say you're pretty happy and content.
Yeah.
And I like that way of thinking.
I feel like a 7 is pretty good.
It's really good. Yeah. That's a really good average. That means you have a lot more good days than bad days.
I think for an exercise, I might, for a couple months, but at the end of my day, I might just go like 6. You know, or like I might go like 9. Like I actually on Saturday with my wife, I think I had a 9 day. I even told her that. I was like, this is just a really great day. You can't have a really great day every day, but it's nice to notice when you do, you know, and you're just like, that was, but I'm going to practice like a little numerical evaluation just for fun.
It's good.
Experiment.
And you know, it's also really good and helping me in this life, especially if you have someone to share it with. At the end of the day, before you go to bed, to come up with your 3 favorite moments of the day. And what happens to your brain if you do that every day, during the day, throughout the day, you're going to look for those moments. And, you know, when, for example, when your baby just walked in, I mean, with someone because she can't walk yet, but... And
no, she sauntered in.
Yeah, and then just opened her arms and wanted to hang out with me, who she'd never met before. I immediately thought, aw, this was one of my favorite moments when this random baby wanted to hang out with me and just wanted to play with my bolo tie, you know? So it kind of teaches your brain to look for the little happy moments in any normal day and look for the silver linings.
I feel like so much of having a happy life is just about noticing the good things that happen to you. Which are there are many good things, even in any life. You just have to notice them. I'm saying this to myself just to like, dude, pay attention, man. It's a journey. Judy Blank, this has been such a pleasure. It's been interesting to get to know you a little bit better, but it's also been really inspiring to hear you talk about your career. And I think that like idea of being guided by curiosity is something that everyone can take and apply to their own particular situation. So thank you for being so inspiring.
Well, thank you for having me.
Can't wait to see your set this week.
All right. Sweet.
Talk soon. Bye. Hey, thanks for watching. Go ahead and click here to like and subscribe. You can click right there to watch another video, or click here to watch a playlist featuring songs of the Morse Code Podcast. Okay, thank you very much.